Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for those who have continued to watch. Today I've got 6 flour alternatives. I will give you the ratios and we'll make some flour and stuff at the end. So the first one is potato flour, or i.e. smash. It's made in exactly the same way. You literally just cook the potato, dehydrate it, and then blend it up. If you wanted to compare the amount you would need for a specific recipe, if it was 1 cup of wheat flour, you would use 2/3 of a cup of potato flour. All these flours are obviously gluten-free, and the best way to use them is to just get some old gluten-free cookery books from Car Boot Sales or World of Books or someone like that. I got 4 books from World of Books a few weeks ago for £10, included delivery, so can't grumble at that. If you want to see a video on how to make that, I did that as part of my 2 ways to preserve potatoes video. So the next one is dock seeds. Earlier on in the year, I did a video trying to make some bread. I didn't spend a lot of time on the actual flour itself because I wasn't sure if I would even like the bread or how it would turn out. So I did a basic recipe that I'd followed. It came out okay, and definitely needed work. So then I set out to find other flours and also refine this process more, which I have. I'm quite satisfied with. I cooked the seeds overnight in water, strained it off, washed it out a couple of times, and then dried it. I have included the video for that at the end as part of this video. So the ratio for this, I've got my notes here because obviously it's quite a lot of information to try and remember. So the ratio for this, if you were using it as against wheat flour, so say you were replacing it with wheat flour, is a 1-to-1 ratio. You could use it all in a recipe, but probably recommended that you only replace part of the recipe with this. It hasn't got the bitter taste in it anymore, so it is a fine powder. But again, I'm going to be working on other recipes through the year to try and incorporate all of the flours that I'm making. I'm trying to become self-sufficient in flours and get away from the wheat flour. So this sort of stuff would always be available to me and my family. This next one is sugar beet flour. This can be used on a 1-to-1 ratio, is an absolutely beautiful tasting flour. If you were doing sweet recipes, you could sort of like omit some of the sugar. So like I say, it can be used as a direct replacement for wheat flour, especially in cookies and stuff like that. It's also very high in fibre and can also increase the shelf life of your product. The only thing you would need to do is probably adjust the water content of your recipe because the absorption is so much more. This little one here is acorn flour. I haven't managed to make much of it so far this year. The acorns that I picked, most of them were no good. I have since done a load of research, and again later on in the year, like October, when we get a second drop of acorns, because I didn't know that there was 2 drops of acorns that the trees drop, or they're rubbish, sort of like early part of September, August, early part of September, and I wondered why they were dropping, but apparently they dropped the rubbish, and then they then have a second drop in October. So I will keep an eye out and get a load more acorns then and carry on with the video that I've already started to do with this little batch here. But this acorn flour A lot of people think that acorns are poisonous, but I will prove to you, and there's a lot of videos out there that show they're not poisonous if they are treated in the right way. So acorn flour is a 1-to-1 replacement for almond or coconut flour, and you can follow recipes that include those sorts of flours for this for acorns. I think it's always best to follow recipes in the books because all the hard work has obviously been done for us. And the same goes for the squash flour. The equation is half a cup of that would be a pound of wheat flour. So you can see how little you use. I think it's just because these products are dehydrated, and then when we use them, they suddenly expand with the water and stuff. If you want to see how I made the squash flour, it's very simple, but it's in a video that I did called "Every Prepper Should Know This," and it just shows you that when you've got an abundance of zucchinis or stroke courgettes, pumpkins, summer squashes, anything like that, that you can make them into a flour to use later on. This next one is rice flour, and I just literally used a cheap rice and ground it into flour. Obviously it's full of starch, so you can't use it as a direct replacement, as a 100% replacement, unless the recipe tells you to do that. But we're going to be using some of that to help as a binder in with my other flours. To mention that I bought this grinder, I think it was about 90 quid off of Amazon. I did have a hand grinder that I've used in previous videos, but he only lasted a month. It really wasn't up to the job, and it didn't give me the fine powder that this has given me. And because I wanted to start using and exploring other recipes, flours, all sorts of things, this still runs off of my EcoFlow, so I could still use it up the cabin if I wanted to. Ones that I don't have here but other ideas for you is corn flour or cornmeal, i.e. polenta. All it is corn kernels blended up. The corn kernels, like the rice, their shelf stableness is pretty much to eternity if it's stored correctly. So to have the rice, you can make the flours and then other products, and the same with the cornmeal. You can just keep the corn in the cupboard and then make it into flours, polentas, all those sorts of different things. So those are two great ones to have in the cupboard. The last one that I'm going to talk about is just chickpea flour. Again, you can, when it comes to gluten-free flours, you can do a 50-50 ratio with other flours, and again, just grind down the chickpeas. That's all you do. So that's why I don't have those two here, because they're just in jars and I don't want to be grinding those unnecessarily. So that's about the information that I've got for you on the actual flours. Now I have sort of worked out a recipe that for some pastry using these, or some of these. So I particularly wanted to find one for the dock seeds, because those and the acorns are something that there is going to be plenty of if there's no shops available. The other stuff I have to grow, whereas these are free items. So I wanted to use the dock seeds if I could. So the three flours that I've sort of thought would be a nice combination is the dock seeds. They're obviously very plentiful at the moment. Rice flour, and I'm going to use some of the sugar beet flour as well. So these have cooled down a little bit now, so we're going to give it a whirl. That's pretty good, actually. I think if I added a bit more chocolate or cocoa powder or something, a little bit more sugar. Not a lot, not a lot, not by any stretch of the imagination. Taste of this one. We just come off the plate all right. Ooh. When I made my first recipe with the curly dock seeds, they were a little bit bitter. If you're using broad leaf docks, they're even more bitter, but you can process that out by soaking them for 24 hours and then drying. So I'm going to do that with this recipe. I didn't do it with the first lot because I wasn't sure if I could even make it work, but because it went quite well, I'm going to refine the flour a bit more. So I'm just filling my bucket up. The water that I've got in the outside taps is all spring water. This water I've got aqua roll underneath, and I always put this aqua sol or a purifying tablet in the barrel every time I fill it up, so that when I'm using it I know I can just come and get a drink if I want to. So this is drinkable water. We're going to just cover the dock seeds over, and I'm going to leave it in here overnight. This is our curly dock seeds. They've been soaking for 24 hours. I'm doing it to try and reduce the oxalic acid. That's what gives it its bit more bitter taste, so soaking it should help get that out. So I shall give it a good mix around, strain it off, and then wash it through with some more clean water. So there was a bit of water left in the bottom, but it just literally came out really easily, drained off really easily. So just going to spread it out and put it out in the fresh air, and the wind and there we go, the wind and the sun can dry it for me. So that's it laid out in the sun. I should just every time I pass I should just move it around a little bit. So I had the dock seeds drying outside for about 4 hours yesterday, and then they were literally dry enough to mill, so I brought them in here into the greenhouse and I milled them through twice, and then I spread them out in this bucket and left them overnight. I've milled it again, so this is the third mill, and then I'm just doing a fourth, and it is getting much finer each time I do it. Definitely soaking has helped it. There's a lot more white seed that I can see this time. I couldn't see that much when I did the docks the first day, but I did only mill that a couple of times, and this literally is the fourth one through. As you can see, that's quite a fine flour now, so I shall finish the rest and put it in the jar and call it a day on that. So this is the dock seeds that I processed. I've soaked them and dried them and ground them down with the other grinder, but it doesn't go to a fine powder. So I'm going to see what it does in this blender, because it would be nice if we could get rid of that texture from it. So that was about 30 seconds, I would say. And let the dust settle. Oh, wow. That's come down to a beautiful flour. I don't know if you can see that, was really, really fine powder now. Really fine. Lovely. And it doesn't have a bitter taste at all. Obviously soaking it, I didn't roast it. Some people roast it when they're drying it. I didn't do that. To use something like this is fantastic. I'm really glad I've bought this, actually, because I want to get self-sufficient in different types of flour and cooking. For me, this is a great investment for the future. I'm going to let that cool before I put it back in the jar. This is the squash flour that I made earlier on in the year. I've got a little bit left. And this is just some squash that I've got dehydrating in the window. Because we're a bit later on in the year, I did start it off in the dehydrator. Well, actually, I started it off outside, but the weather came in. So I put it in the dehydrator for just a couple of hours, just to give it a head start. And then I put it in the window, and then it gets less and less and less. There was 6 trays, so I'm able to now put it in this one tub and leave it in the window just to fully dry, and then I can grind it down into the powder, obviously putting in moisture absorbers and oxygen absorbers for long-term stability. So this is some acorns that I processed. I am doing a full video on acorns later on in the year, but acorns are totally edible if they are treated properly. You have to soak them until the tannins come out, which is the poisonous or toxic stuff. It took me a couple of days to soak these. I haven't got many here, and I was sort of like toying, do I just leave them as a chopped nut, because that's what they taste like, is just a chopped nut. I could roast them off. You can use them as a coffee, grind them up, use them as a coffee, or even just leave them like this and put them in a coffee pot. Acorns have got so many uses, but like I say, I will do a full video on this, but I will just see if we can grind this small amount. That's the thing, is I've got such a small amount out of the acorns that I picked. So we'll see if we can get it does grind to a flour, but whether I can get this small amount ground down is another thing. One thing I did think of when I was doing these acorns was that they would make a really nice dry roasted nut. So I will just show you. We do have sort of like a fine powder, but there is a few chunks on the top. Again, that you would be able to use that. You know, you could sieve it out if you wanted to, or just wait until I get some more and do a bigger lot in there, and that would be a really nice powder. Another item that I've grown this year to make flour out of is the sugar beet. I'm going to grind down the sugar beet into flour. I put it in this jar about 5 days ago, waiting for this to come. When I did it before, obviously it all went sticky, but putting the oxygen absorbers and moisture absorbers in, it's absolutely fine. That is a lovely fine powder or flour. That is a lovely fine flour now. So this is the homemade smash that I made, which my grinder left it a little bit grainy. So I'm going to do this in the grinder, but also once this is very fine, it's exactly the same way as you would make the flour. You cook the potatoes, dry it out, and then grind it up, and then you've got potato flour. That was a minute. I might just give it another half a minute. That is just like smash. I don't know if you can see that, but that is just so smooth. It's lovely. Again, I'm going to let that cool. Just really cheap economy rice, 50p for a whole packet, and we're going to make rice flour. Wow. I don't know if you can see that, but that is lovely. Lovely. Again, I'll let that cool down before I jar it up. Well, that brings me to the end of another video. It was nice to be able to make a jam tart and some cookies out of the flours that I have either foraged or grown or made with the rice. I used rice flour. I've really enjoyed this video. I've learned a lot this year, but particularly on different sorts of cooking and flours and stuff like that. So it was nice to bring it all together in one video. I did video me making these, but unbeknownst to me, my lovely little mic had gone flat or cut out, and because the end is in the camera, like the receiver is in the camera, you just couldn't hear a word I was saying. So I obviously couldn't include that, but I think the video is quite long enough as it is anyway. Thank you to all those that have continued to watch. If you did like it, find it informative, give it the old thumbs up and a subscribe if you're not already. Till next time, bye.